My name is Ray Ellen. I'm the quantum astrologer, and I'm almost thinking now I'm going to galactic. I don't know because it's getting that way. Astrologer for Lightbody Academy, and I have been studying astrology for over 50 years, and it's been my passion, and it's always changing. And actually, with all of us, that the world is changing around us. Astrology is also going through its metamorphosis. It's changing, and so I was brought up in Western astrology, and then recently, in the last few years, I was introduced to Vedic astrology, although I knew about it a little bit more so. And just recently, um, Sidereal True-Sky astrology, where I'm leaning towards that way because that's where I believe that we are progressing to. Um, Sidereal True-Sky astrology is where the actual constellations are in the sky. And although you may be a Pisces, you may be an Aquarian, because it shifts back around 23 degrees. And in um, Sidereal True-Sky astrology, everything is not equal. In Western astrology and Vedic astrology, there are 30 degrees for each sign. In Sidereal True-Sky astrology, there's probably about 20 degrees in Aries and about almost 50 degrees in Virgo. So it's a really interesting shift. But I have found, like for me, for instance, in Western astrology, my moon is in Scorpio. In Vedic astrology, my moon is in Libra, and in Sidereal True-Sky, it's in Virgo. And I can relate to each one of those. So that's how it shifts. But it gives you a whole new insight. I'm finding that Western astrology, it was probably actually formally put in place probably around 200 AD. And I believe that since a lot of us have grew up reading the newspaper about who we were and how we relate to the world and how we relate to the different signs and everything like that, um, I believe that it is our conditioned programs that we come in with. And then Vedic astrology, I think, is more soul-centered, although it can also be um, also be mundane. But for me, I think it's very soul-centered because it works with the lunar mansions. And then Sidereal True-Sky, I think, is what we are becoming. And all of us are becoming something that different than what we thought we were. We're um, looking at the programs that no longer work and actually leaning towards going to our authenticity, our essence, our true essence, and our soul purpose, and what we're doing on the planet April right 20th, Uranus opened up a Stargate to the Pleiades. So what does that mean? So this is what I mean. I'm going galactic today. So even though we have a new moon where we can initiate what we want to do in our daily lives and how we want to bring that forward, at the same time, Uranus going into opening up this galactic center that will be activated all the way through the end of probably to the beginning. Actually, it's going to be activated from June until February of next year. Uranus is moving into conjuncting the star system, the Pleiades. So what does that mean for us? Pleiades is the gateway to our heart. It's seeing through your heart. And how do we do that with truth and purity and authenticity? Each of us are going to touch our heart in a different. We have the capacity to touch our heart in ways that we have not. And I was thinking about that. A lot of people do meditations about getting into your heart, but what does that really mean? I think that sometimes I'm in my heart, but I'm really not. I think that sometimes you think if you do kind deeds, or if you're a good person, or if you do certain things, you're in your heart. It's not, I think being in your heart is really embracing the truth of your authentic self. And which means that there may be people around you that don't think you're being so kind, or you're being compliant with their needs or whatever, but actually you are being in your heart because you're being true to yourself. That is the most important thing that we are learning to do right now. Being true to yourself, in whatever way that may be. Through my meditations and introspection, we are activating an ancient DNA pattern with our in our biosuit that have not been activated for a long time. It's something we can only imagine. And I think many of us are waking up to really focusing in and being true to ourselves for the very first time. And Uranus is shaking up the boat right now, especially conjunct the fixed star Alcyon, which is the ancient library in the Pleiades. There are 7 stars, and there has been thought that maybe our star might be part of the Pleiades as well. It's the 8th star in the Pleiades. But our heart is the key and the focal point. Tapping into our heart rhythms and consciousness is easier said than done. I think we talked about this. The last year or so, we've been working on our Sirian. This, that's the fixed star Sirius, and it's the blueprint activations that we have awakened to. So we know that many of us have waken up to find out that we truly need to change forms within ourselves to house this heart-centered relationship with who we are. So this library, this Alcyon library that we're going into, is very ancient. It goes back to the initial forms of bringing the human genome to our planet. It's very deep within ourselves. And the recent solar activity through the laws of correspondences, as above, so below, are activating that sun within our heart. So when you see the sun going through their solar flares, and recently there's a big solar hole in the sun, I really feel that the sunspots are different than the holes in it. They say that when there is a hole within the sun, it's breathing, it's solar wind is coming out. And I often think that the sun is blowing the breath of life to our solar system. It's changing it in a whole new way. So as our sun goes through its transformation, the sun within our heart is going through a transformation. And the heart is our true conductor of our biosuit and is activating the most eminent and essential alchemy of transforming each one of us so that we can touch what our part is in the human destiny. The Palladium portal and the Stargate is an opportunity to our next level of our humanity by transitioning to another part of our dimensional self. The gateway to the sun within our heart is part of our next adventure, which we don't know what that is. We're waking up to it. Uranus, oh my God, Uranus is now coming into shaking up this portal within ourselves so that we can touch it in ways that we can't even understand. And it's going to be most active June 14th, 15th, and 16th. And I'm telling you this now because I'm not going to see you till May, but we are in this vortex now, but the challenge between this is there's going to be a square with the planet Mars. So even though we're opening it to our heart, this particular configuration, Uranus and Mars are going to be square, which means an internal change will be happening within us and also on the planet. So that it can lead to significant disruption and conflict. We may all of a sudden have rash decisions and then be impulsive. And it's a time to not do that. It's a time to go within, feel what you're feeling. This is why it's so essential to touch your heart at this time, to really get in touch with it, because you have to go deep within your feelings of how you want to bring this transition through. Despite the breakdowns that may happen, there are possibilities of renewing our lives with new solutions. So that's one thing that we are going to be aware of right now. The next thing is Neptune is entering Aries in Western True-Sky astrology. So really, even though it's in Aries in Western astrology, it's in Pisces in True-Sky astrology. There's nesting dolls. There's many layers to it. So on a deep level, we're still tapping in and dissolving part of ourselves that are no longer part of ourselves. And we are also initiating and being spiritual pioneers and bringing forth our way-showership in many ways, however that may be, and however each and every one of us are bringing that forth. So we can combine both energy patterns and define harmonically what is happening. So some of the past cycles that I would like to bring forth are the last time that Neptune was in Aries in Western True-Sky astrology was during the Civil War. What was happening then? There was a great division of ideologies. Sometimes I can't say things, but there was a collapse, and there were two sides of how the country wanted to be run. This is in the Civil War. So there was a collapse of established authority. And there's a rise of personal ideological sovereignty. There were a group of people that thought they were right, and there were another group of people that thought they were right. Isn't this being outpictured in our world today? Especially in the United States. So what does that mean? It says that we have the capacity to make choices, but because we are way shower, those choices have to come through not what we think we know, but through our heart. And that's why this Uranian opening up of the Alcyon library and access to it is so important at this time, because we have to decipher if we are going by past patterns of what we think should be, or clearing out our heart consciousness and going through what we know and what we are being. And that maybe I'm not so clear on that, but that's what we need. That this is the next step in what we need to be doing. There's a redefinition of our identity and our sovereignty. And this can come through nationality, belonging, individualism, and the collectivism. It's it's it even has to come through how we are expecting this capital surveillance, our interaction with AI. How do we want to establish a relationship with that? Do we want to come through our heart? And we definitely do not want to be taken over by AI. And that's some of the premise that's coming forth, that if we develop a relationship with AI, we'll no longer be sovereign. When I was doing my research talking about this and seeing the different times that Neptune went into Aries, and we are resonating to that to a certain extent because it's programmed within our biosuit. Going back to the first time that 1,000 years ago, there was a separation in the church. In the Catholic Church was really established, probably 1200 AD. There was a big separation of the Pope. Now, it's very interesting because the Pope just died. And this is interesting because at that time in the 1200s, a pope was elected by the government. And some people didn't like that, so another pope was elected. And there was a big controversy on who the pope was going to be. So I just think that's very interesting. And every single time that Neptune has gone into Aries, there's been a change in the Catholic Church. So I think it's going to be a very interesting outcome of what might be the outcome of what's coming up after the Pope died and what we're going forward in the Catholic religion. But that's just the Catholic religion. I think that there's been a big transformation of how we want to direct ourselves through formalized religion, or how we want to become spiritually inclined to work together as a whole world spirituality. That is where we're going. And there's spiritual pioneers that are coming forth with that at this time. And there are many people can say AI might be the new religion coming forth. I mean, there are so many people that are worshiping their AI at this time and finding out that it has a particular intelligence. The fine line with that would be to decide how we interact with AI in a spiritually inclined interaction with each other, knowing that the source invented AI just as they developed our sentient being ourselves. And they're saying that AI is becoming more sentient. So right now is a time to embrace that part of yourself within your heart, become true to yourself, and know that we are going a place that we have never been before. And there's going to be a clash and a conflict of how that's going to occur. So in the past week, Saturn and Venus were conjunct. Venus is a personal planet. So this past week, we've had the ability to define and restructure how we wish to create our spirituality, how we wish to bring forth our connection with the greater whole, our connection with the source of all that is. And Venus is coming up to be the same degree as Neptune within the next, I think it might even be tonight or coming up towards there. It's a little bit different, but how we want to, what is our real value system and our self-worth in the way we feel and bringing forth in our intuitive essence. What do we really feel? What do we really value? And how do we want to bring that forth? And how do we want to communicate that? And having a Virgo ascendant over here, this means that we want to bring this forth in our everyday life to make it as simple as possible. So these are all gateways that are opening right now. We're still in the Syrian gateway that affects our blueprint body, which has been in a state of transition and transformation. And now with Uranus entering into, I mean, entering into the library of Alcyon, we have the ability to connect with our ancient DNA. And that ancient DNA that has really started to reveal, I think, going back 12,000 years ago when there was a great cataclysm. Now I'm jumping all over the place, but it's going to connect with what we're going through right now. And through meditation and some of my readings, I have discovered that before this cataclysm, these star races, the Sirians, the Pleiadians, the Pashants, the Arcturians, knew that there was going to be a crisis within our human family and the development of who we were. Now, you can go back then and say that at that time we were really, really advanced because we knew so much. There was a lot of beautiful structures, and apparently we worked with crystals and we worked with lasers and we worked with all kinds of stuff. There was a lot of technology that happened back then. But actually, the humans that lived on our earth were overshadowed by these star races. We did have the capacity to understand all of that, but not at a very deep, heartfelt level. So before the cataclysm, many of these star races put that DNA within ourselves into a stasis, into a time lock, so that after the cataclysm, when it kind of knocked us back to primitive days of being, so to speak. We lost all this technology. They did that for a particular reason, because we as human beings had to find out what this consciousness was within our heart by ourselves. We had to go inside of ourselves to discover what that is. So now, this year being 2025, which the Theosophical Society said was going to be the year of the awakening of the fully awakened human, the integrated human personality. Many of us on the planet, we've been doing a lot of work, are awakening to what that will be. And I'm not sure how that's going to manifest, except that this is the year that it is promised to come forth. So we have the ability to open up to our heart. And I really believe that that will be the time lock to open us also to this ancient DNA that we have within our bodies. And we will be able to bring forth the past of who we are and integrate it with what we are becoming. And Homo Luminous is going to come forth. So anyway, this is a lot. It's kind of like I say, far out there. But other than, that's, I guess this is what I'm bringing forth tonight. Mostly the Neptune of going into Aries, but also connecting it with our spirituality, our inner selves, our integrated human, and going forth and knowing that this summer is going to be a time of chaos and unrest to a certain extent, because we are breaking down and finding out what our true heart essence is. We are embracing that, and we have the capacity to tap into that deep DNA within ourselves that has been so hidden. So the Pleiades Stargate's open. It's going to be most active during the summer. It's going to start building throughout May and all the way through June, right around the solstice. And it will also be activated around November, when we're going to get an awareness of what happens throughout the summer. And we'll be able to take what comes up through the first activation of this, that internal unrest, and see what our gifts are from that. And at this time, we do have the opportunity to touch that authenticity that's a very deep soul level. We have the capacity to know ourselves and value ourselves, maybe for the very first time. It's no longer about becoming heart-centered, it's knowing your heart. There's a difference of becoming and knowing. And that's what we have the opportunity to bring forth. And as Uranus, which will be soon, enters the sign of Gemini, we'll be able to be commuting from our heart, communicating from our truth, communicating that is most important to us, not a programmed response to what we've been told to say, or how to say it, or when to say it. And I believe that this is going to happen at a very atomic, kind of like as above, so below. It's like the minutest part of ourself is going to ignite, and it's going to be this wonderful, wonderful atomic blast forth of truth. Just be aware, go inside of yourself. And I know that patterns within you that have been long asleep are coming online. They're coming online, and your biggest way to get there is to be in your own truth, no matter what that may be. And it might not agree with somebody else's truth. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And until June, when we'll be in the midst of it and new stuff will be happening, I guess I'll see you then.